Good morning, good afternoon, and for those of you that join us across the pond, good evening and welcome to another Hubinar. Today I have with me Amy Eisenstein, and this is a really super exciting topic that we're going to be talking about, major gifts. And how to get those big dollars. While we're letting people get online here yet, we did have a few audio issues to start, so hopefully you all have audio codes and are able to hear us. Just let us know if there are any issues in that regard. And also just know that we will be recording this today. So if you find something really intriguing that you want to share with a colleague or you need to re-listen, we will have a recording and that will go out later this afternoon. And I'm sure that there will be some things that you'll definitely want to share with some of the folks in your office. So with that, I don't want to take up a whole lot of Amy's time. So how are you doing today, Amy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am honored to have you, to be honest. And so I was just saying that we have wonderful weather here. What's it like where you're located?
Yeah, I'm calling in from New Jersey, and it is a beautiful fall day, perfectly blue sky, probably in the high 50s.
Oh, perfect.
So that is glorious weather for October here, yeah.
That is awesome. Well, hey, let's just jump right in, and I'll hand it all over to you.
All right, sounds good. So, we were having the audio issues, and I like to see who's here. So if you guys wouldn't mind, can you just type in the chat box, I can hear you, I'm calling in from here. We'll just do it for 30 seconds, just to know that we're not actually just talking to ourselves. I see hands being raised, but I don't know. And I'm not seeing people respond. Are you, Randy?
I am. New Mexico,
yes.
Richmond, Virginia.
There you go.
Oh, someone's
Perfect.
from Megan from Lincoln. Hi, Megan. Palm
Great.
Beach, Santa Cruz, Oakland.
Good,
I love it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's always
Portland, one of my
anyways,
favorites.
Right? All right, excellent. I was looking in the chat box instead of in the questions, and they were popping up in the questions. Okay, so perfect. Anyways, all right, good. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Then we're going to talk today about 3 secrets to raising major gifts. I'm so glad everybody can hear us loud and clear, and that you're calling in from all over the place to talk about that. This important topic of raising major gifts, which is actually near and dear to my heart. So this is what we're going to cover today. Here are the 3 secrets. So secret number 1, you can raise major gifts without any new donors. So this is often a surprise to folks, but you can raise major gifts without any new donors. Secret number 2 is if you get a meeting, you'll get a gift. And that often also is a surprise to people. And finally, secret number 3 is metrics matter. So you can raise more money by using the right metrics. So that's what we're going to go ahead and talk about today. So we're going to get started with secret number 1, and that is you can raise major gifts without any new donors. So, okay, so before I get to that slide, let me start by saying that frequently I get calls as a consultant asking me, I get calls from directors of development and executive directors asking me if I can help them find major gift donors. And the answer is both yes and no. The answer is no to the answer to the question they think they're asking, and they think they're asking the question, can I help identify new major gift donors that they don't have any contact with, that they don't know about, that are sort of quote unquote out there. And so the answer to that, of course, is no. I can't help them find any new donors that are major gift donors, but what I can do is help them find where the best major gift prospects are already within their organization. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So secret number 1, there's money in your database. So most development directors believe that they don't have prospective donors, meaning potential major gift donors in their database. But the reality is that experience and data tells us that that's not true. That unless you've really pounded the pavement and had your list screened for wealth and a few other things, then you may actually not even know who is in your database that potentially could give you a major gift. And before we go on, all right, so let me just, all right, we'll keep going, and then I'll ask you a few questions in just a minute in terms of a major gift. But so I want to tell you that many donors have the capacity to make gifts that are 10 times more than they are making right now. So that means that $100 donors may be able to give $1,000, $1,000 donors may be able to give $10,000 or more. And we see that actually happen all the time when we're raising major gifts, and especially in capital campaigns. But when you sit down with a donor for the first time in a face-to-face setting, in a personal way, and make a compelling case for support and ask for a major gift, it is often 5 to almost sometimes 10 times or more what they had been giving through the mail and online or by coming to your events. So what I'm telling you is that the people, your current donors who are giving online and in the mail and coming to your events, most of them are likely to be able to give more. They're probably not giving the most that they could be if they haven't been asked in a personal way. And I'll just use myself as an example. I give lots and lots of organizations $25, $50, or even $100 at the end of the year for holiday appeal campaigns. But if any one of them came to me and sat me down and had a compelling case for support, which they all do, but if they all, any of them sat me down and pitched why I should give 10 times what I had been giving or $1,000, I could do so without too much inconvenience to my day-to-day budget. And so that would be 10 or 20 or even more times what I had been giving. And we see this across the spectrum in terms of dollar figures. So it works with people who are giving $1,000 and people who are giving $10,000 and people who are giving $100,000. This concept works. So, all right. So it's important to focus on major donors, and that's because one donor could increase your revenue by 10% or more. Let me explain what I mean by this. So let's say you're doing a holiday appeal campaign, and you are so you're doing a holiday appeal campaign and you raise $100,000. Well, if you sit down with any one of your bigger donors or your high capacity donors and ask for $10,000 and get that one major gift, that increases your campaign revenue by 10% or more. Because instead of raising $100,000 for your campaign, you raised $110,000. So one donor just increased your revenue by 10%. And if this is true for one donor, just imagine what would happen if you have 5 or even 10 major donors. So Randy, I don't know if you see, I have a blinking sort of box. I think it means that there's a question, and I see something about a call-in number. I can't quite see the questions. I don't know why it's not expanding on my screen, but if you, I assume you're managing and watching. I guess somebody has a question. Okay, so let's go ahead with a poll, and we haven't set up in the official poll, so just type it in the questions box, and I will see them sort of scroll by quickly. But how much is a major gift at your organization? So A, B, or C? $1,000 range is A, $5,000 range is B, $10,000 or more is C. Okay, I'm seeing some of each, A's, B's, C's, A, C. Okay, 10,000. Good. Oh, so we have everybody on the call. A major gift is everywhere from $1,000 to $10,000. Now, I have to tell you that the vast majority of nonprofits in this country consider $1,000 to $5,000 a major gift. So honestly, you're right in where people are talking about major gifts. So I want to make sure that you have a sense of what we're talking about, because we're talking about raising major gifts. You have to know what a major gift is at your organization. Okay, so now let's talk about how to identify potential major donors from your database. Well, I should say potential major donors for your organization. We use this handy acronym, ABC. A is for access, B is for belief, and C is for capacity. So A means that you have access to them. That means you have their email address, you have their phone number. Hopefully they pick up the phone when you call. It means you can get in contact with them. And that's really important. That's actually, we talk about A, access first, because if you can't access them, then honestly, capacity doesn't matter. So B stands for belief. Do they believe in your cause or your mission, or could they believe in your cause or your mission? And C is capacity. Do they have the capacity to make a gift in the size that you're looking for? So for everybody on the call, that is $1,000, $5,000, or $10,000 or more, but it doesn't mean you're looking necessarily for a millionaire, certainly not a billionaire, because lots and lots of people can make major gifts of the size that we're talking about to your organization. Now, if we were to use this ABC acronym and we didn't ask it in this order, then often what happens when I'm facilitating a workshop or a board retreat is that the wrong question gets asked first. And the wrong question first is, who is rich? And that goes to the capacity question. But if we ask the wrong question first, who's rich, then we come up with names like Oprah Winfrey or Bill Gates. And if we don't have access to them, or they don't believe in our cause, it doesn't matter how much money they have. They're not good prospects for your organization. So the first thing we need to look at when we're looking for potential major gift donors is that we have access to them and they believe in our cause. So when we're looking for our best major gift prospects, we don't need any new donors. We need to start in our database. And what we're looking for in our database is we're looking for our largest donors, of course, but also our most loyal donors. So people who have made repeat gifts. You can look for people who have increased their giving over time. So somebody who started out as a $25 donor and then became a $100 donor, or maybe a $250 donor. So we're going to look at those people who are current donors and ask ourselves, how close are they to the organization? What's their affinity score? And that's going to be looking at back to our ABC acronym, A and B, access and belief. So how close are they to our organization? How much do they care? And if you run lists out of your database of your largest and most loyal donors, they're all going to be 4s and 5s. They're committed donors. They're ongoing donors. They're large donors. So when you start in your database, you have access to all of them, and they all believe to some degree in your organization because they've already raised their hand and said, I'm going to make a gift. So the next thing we're going to look at when we're looking for our best major gift prospects is also giving them a capacity score. So how much do we think they can give to our organization this year, or for the next 3 years, however you want to ask yourself the question. And so look at those lists of your largest and your most loyal and your increasing donors right out of your database and see if, based on what you know about them, you can assign them a capacity score. So listen, if you've done a wealth screening, if you've had your list screened for wealth, then you have certainly, excuse me, I'm so sorry, a hand up in this. But if you have not had your list screened for wealth, then you're going to have to take your best educated guess at this. And you're going to ask yourself all sorts of questions about What do we know about this donor? What is their donor history to our organization? Do we know anything about what they give to other organizations? What do we know that they do for a living? Do we know anything about how they live or their lifestyle? And then we're going to come up with our best educated guess at a capacity score. And then, of course, we're going to refine it as we talk to the donor. So basically, you're going to look at your two scores. How close are they to the organization and how strongly do they believe in the organization, their affinity score along the bottom, and their capacity score.
So then when
Randy, we've got some background noise. Somebody unmuted themselves. Then we take the people who are our 4s and 5s in both categories, both the closest and most loyal and committed to our organization that we have the most access to, and our 4s and 5s for capacity, and we have our biggest and best prospects.
How do I not?
There we go. Okay. So, Randy, we still seem to have some background noise. I don't know why not everybody's muted.
I'll get you here in just a second.
Okay. All right. Okay. So anyways, we're looking at people who are in our best prospect category, those who are scoring the highest in terms of capacity and affinity. And we want to come up with our top prospect lists that you can focus on in terms of who you're going to cultivate and solicit for a major gift this year. I hope that makes sense. All right, so let's keep going. So now let's talk about the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule you may know as the Pareto principle, and that says that 80% of people generally do 20% of something, and conversely, 20% of people do 80% of something. So when we apply it, it works across all sectors, but when we apply it to fundraising, it means that 80% of your dollars, your fundraising dollars, are likely coming from 20% of your donors, and that 80% of your donors are probably only giving 20% of the dollars that you raise. And so this is actually even more extreme when we talk about major gifts and capital campaigns. It's closer to 90-10. So 90% of your fundraising dollars are likely to be coming from 10% of your donors. And so really, when it comes to major gift fundraising, you only need a handful of qualified donors who can really make a difference. So major gift fundraising isn't about the masses. It's about a small number of people who can really make a difference. So it's super important that you're asking for more, because as we discussed, most people aren't giving as much as they could be. And so it's up to you to go out and ask for significantly bigger gifts. That is how you're going to fundraise to your potential and raise really the funds that you need from the donors that you already have. So that's secret number one, is that you can raise major gifts without any new donors. Your best major gift prospects are those who already donate to you, because they have for access, you have access to them, they believe in your cause or your mission, and C, that's the only thing that you need to find out is, do they have the capacity to make a major gift in the size that you're looking for? So really, though, starting with the donors who are already in your database is where your major gift potential is at. Okay, so secret number 2 is, if you get a meeting, you'll get a gift. So that is the secret that we are moving on to right now. If you get a meeting, you will get a gift. So it's super important that you get out from behind your desk. Gifts are out there, not in here. And I have to tell you that I've been doing this for a while, and in the 90s, we were able to sit at our desks and donors would call in and the money was flowing. And it was a great time to be in fundraising, because it was pretty easy compared to how it has been, honestly, for the past 10 plus years. And so it's, I think, sometimes easy to sit behind your desk. You have a pile of paperwork, you've got emails coming in and grant deadlines and maybe events you're planning and other things that are going on. But if you want to really raise major gifts, it's important to go out there and talk to your donors. That is where the major gifts are. They're in the relationships that you're building with your donors. You're not going to be able to create them from behind your desk. Okay, so let's do another quick poll right in the chat box. So how many times per month do you meet with donors? A is less than once a month, or sorry, less than 5 times per month. B is 5 to 10, and of course C is more than 10. Okay, excellent. I've got some A's, some C's, B's. Okay, your goal is C, that's good, but it's really A right now. Okay, a few C's, but more A's, I would say. Okay, not too many B's here from what I can tell. Okay, so listen, if the reality is that major gift fundraising is about relationships and the money is out there, it's really important to think about how you get out, how often you get out and meet with your donors. If you're meeting with donors less than 5 times a month, you're probably not going to be able to raise so much in major gifts. Now, I get it. My guess is that for the most part, you've got many responsibilities at the organization you're at, and this is one of many things. But think about, if you're meeting with major gift donors once a week, you're having individual donors meetings about 50 times per year. If it's twice a month, it's about 24 meetings a year. So set a realistic but aspirational goal for yourself in terms of what you're going to do in terms of getting out and meeting with major gift donors. So because if the reality is that if you get a meeting, you'll get a gift, then the more meetings you get, the more gifts you're going to get. So listen, people don't want to waste time. They don't want to waste your time. They don't want to waste their time. If they care enough to meet, they're going to do something. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do what you want them to do in terms of how much you are asking for, but they are going to give something. It's very unlikely. Okay, so let me back up and put a caveat on that. If you're honest with them. So if you tell them to get a meeting that you're absolutely not out meeting about fundraising and that you never want to ask for a gift, then sure, you're going to get some meetings with people that have no intention of giving you any money. But initially, when you're meeting with people, what I say to potential donors is, listen, I'm not going to ask you for a gift at this particular meeting, but I am out seeing who's interested enough in the organization to potentially give us money down the road. So, not in so many words, but I don't hide the fact that I'm a fundraiser or that's my primary mission. So when I'm initially meeting with people for cultivation, I might say something like, look, as you know, we are raising money for the organization, but part of my job is to get to know people and find out who is interested in giving to the organization, right? So, and along those lines, I would like to meet with you to ask your opinion and get your advice and find out what your interests are. Those types of things, maybe a little softer if you don't know the person at all. But then if you get an ask meeting, then when you're actually ready to ask, you let the person know. You say, listen, as we discussed, or as we've been discussing, or as you know, we have a big mission and a big vision at this organization. In order to fulfill that, I'd love to set up a time to come talk to you about the needs of the organization and how you might be able to help, right? So you don't hide the fact that you're coming to ask for help and ask for a contribution. You let them know. And so therefore, when people meet with you, they're going to do something. Like I said, they may not do everything you ask for, but they're going to do something. So if you get an ask meeting, you are going to get a gift. So this is Rachel, or a picture of what Rachel might look like. And she called me a couple of months ago, and she was really frustrated because prospects wouldn't meet with her. She couldn't get any meetings, not just ask meetings. She couldn't get cultivation meetings. She couldn't get any donor meetings. And so I asked her to tell me exactly what she was saying on the phone when she was calling potential donors. And she actually was with a small liberal arts college, and so she was calling alumni of the school. So these were really warm leads. They weren't cold at all, and because these were graduates of her institution. And so what she had been saying for people, what she had been saying to people was that she wanted to come with the dean. The dean wanted to come meet with them to update them on what was going on campus. And I have to tell you, that is super boring. I don't know too many people who are going to say yes to a meeting like that unless they really want to meet the dean for some reason. But that is a waste of donors' time, and quite frankly, a waste of the dean's time too, because the donor, if they're interested, or the alumni in this case, could read about what's going on the website and in the newsletter and in the magazine, and there's tons of ways that they could be updated on what's going on campus. So I coached Rachel to say, instead, that the dean wanted to come meet these alums to learn about their experience on campus and their experience now as an alumni. And so that is much more valuable in terms of a use of time, both to the dean and to the alum, because there's no other way for the dean to get that information than to go out on the road and start talking to alumni. They have to find out what their experience was like on campus and how they're feeling in terms of their connectedness to the college now. Because if they're going to improve those things and fundraise for the college, they have to be connected to alumni. And so just by making that sort of subtle but really important switch in terms of how she was asking for meetings, her success rate improved significantly. So in order to get more meetings, you have to engage your donors. And one of the most important and easy ways to engage them is to ask them questions that only they can answer. Like, you can say something like, I'm on a listening tour of all of our supporters and donors to find out why they give to us and why they care about the organization. I was wondering if I could, when we could set up a time so I could come talk to you about why you give and why you support the organization. And so that is a way that you can get meetings. So, all right, so how not to get a meeting, what not to say over the phone is offer an update, right? They can read about that. You don't have to just say you're coming to say thank you, because if you, listen, I'm not saying that you won't thank the person once you get there for their previous giving, but that's not reason enough to meet, because if you say, I'd like to come thank you in person, they could say, no need for that. You don't need to come thank me in person. Just thank me over the phone. And same thing about, I don't need to tell you about the organization. You can read about that on my website. So how to get a meeting, you want to ask for advice. Like I mentioned, you can go on a listening tour. You want to keep it short and convenient. So let the person know, listen, I understand that we're all super busy, that you have a full schedule, and so I'm happy to come to your home or office at your convenience and keep the meeting short to 30 minutes or less. So you make it as convenient as possible for them, and then you'll get a meeting. So listen, I have rarely had a donor, when I called them, say, oh, Amy, I'm so happy you called. I've been waiting for your call and I can't wait to meet, right? It doesn't happen. And so you are going to hear some objections on the phone when you get somebody on the phone to meeting. If you say, I'd like to schedule a time to meet, I'd love to ask your advice, or I'd love to ask you some questions about you and the organization, you're going to hear, oh, I'm not interested, or I'm not that interested in your organization, or I don't have any time, or I already gave, or I have no money, why are you calling me? So I want you to think about and write some bullets out for what you're going to say in order to push back. Because the reality is that if you don't get meetings with people, you are not going to be able to raise major gifts. So it's critically important that you do push back, because if you call donors and they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm too busy, I don't have time to meet, and you say, okay, thank you very much, and hang up the phone, that's the end of that meeting potential. That's another person that you're not going to meet with. But if they say, listen, I'm too busy, I don't have time, I can't possibly fit it into my schedule, I'm really sorry, and you say, hold on, I completely understand that you are super busy, we're all super busy, but this organization is too important for us not to meet. So I do hope you'll make the time. And what I can do is I can make it as convenient as possible by coming out to your home or office. You don't have to go anywhere, at your convenience. I will try and make my schedule fit yours. So let's carve out 30 minutes next week when I can come meet with you. I'm available Tuesday and Thursday, morning, noon, or night. So you just let me know what works for you. So you do need to push back a little bit in order to get the meetings. If they say, I don't have more money to give, or I already gave, say, listen, I know, actually, or, okay, so if they say I already gave, you say, listen, I know that's one of the reasons that I'm calling you, because you're such an amazing donor to our organization, which is exactly why I'd love the opportunity to talk with you so I can learn more about why people give to our organization, so that it will help me as we raise funds in the future. So whatever the issue is, even not interested, I'm not that interested, say, listen, I understand that we may not be your number one charity at this time. However, you have been a loyal donor to us throughout the years, and I'd really love to know why you continue to give. And so if you would just give me a few minutes of your time, even though I understand we may not be your number one charity at this time, right? So you want to write down a few bullets to each objection that you can think of, and as you start to call more and more donors, you'll hear more and more objections. You can write different responses, but if you try and wing it on the phone, it's likely, and you haven't thought about it in advance, it's likely that you'll get flustered and just, the donor will say, not right now, thank you, goodbye, and that'll be the end of the conversation. Now, I do see a question that says, can you ask for a meeting via email? And the answer is absolutely. In this day and age, it is harder and harder to get through on the phone. Everybody's screening their voicemail. Your number comes up, they don't pick up. And so I think you should try all avenues that you have that are possible. Honestly, people have been asking me about how to get through to younger donors, and younger donors respond via text. And so to me, however you can get in front of people, however you can get somebody's attention, the better. And if email seems to be working for your particular donors, I would try both. I would try calling them and leaving a message and sending an email. So secret number 2 is, if you get a meeting, you'll get a gift. And that, of course, is an ask meeting, because you're letting the person know that you're coming to talk about the needs of the organization and ways that they can help. And so if you get that meeting, you will get something. And so it's important to get those meetings so that you can start to raise major gifts. Okay, secret number 3 is metrics matter. You will raise more money when using the right metrics. So it really is important to pay attention to what you're measuring. So what you measure improves. Now, so again, you can raise more by changing what you measure. And you can see I have a picture of a Fitbit up here. Whatever tracker you're using, when you track your steps, you probably take more steps. When I'm using on days that I use my step counter, when I look at it and I see that it's already 2 or 3 in the afternoon and I've only taken 1,000 steps or 2,000 steps, I know that I have to get out on an hour walk, or there is no way I'm going to get anywhere close to my 10,000 steps. But the reality is that on days that I don't track it, I probably only take 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 steps because I'm not paying attention to it. Same thing, with all aspects of life. What you measure improves because you're aware of it. So here's a cautionary tale. I have a development director, and they are only paying attention to dollars raised. That's what they're reporting out to their board. So they arrive at the organization, and in year 1, they have 10 donors who give $10,000 each. And they report back to the board that they raised $100,000 in major gifts. And the board cheers and applauds, and everybody thinks they did a great job this year, which they did. Well, the very next year, 9 of those donors do not make major gifts again. They don't make gifts of $10,000 or more. One of them does make a gift of $100,000. Now, the development director, again, is only reporting to the board on dollars raised. End of the day, dollars raised. So she reports one more time that she raised $100,000 in major gifts this year, which is true. However, nobody was paying attention to other very important metrics like number of donors or number of gifts. And so nobody was aware of the fact that the major gift program was tanking, or in the toilet, I should say, because nobody was paying attention to anything except for dollars raised. And so it's important to know what metrics you're looking at that are going to be indicators of your major gift program improving or declining, and to know where you are. All right, so one of the things that you need to, or that you'll want to do when raising major gifts is, of course, you're going to set goals. And you probably have an overall fundraising goal at your organization, but you may or may not have a major gift goal. And so, well, before I get to how to set a major gift goal, I'm going to talk about the 2 most popular ways that I see organizations setting their fundraising goals. And honestly, they're not that great. So the number one way I see organizations setting their fundraising goal is to raise X% more than last year. So if you raised $100,000 last year, you're going to raise 5% more. You're going to raise $105,000. That's your goal. But the question is, to me, have donors indicated that they're going to give 5% more? What are you doing that's new or different that would lead you to think that you're going to raise 5% more? Is there a chance that you're going to raise less? So, of course it's based on history. It's based on what you did last year, so it's somewhat accurate. I just want to know why you think you can raise 5% more than last year doing the exact same things. And maybe you have good reasons, but maybe you don't. So, if it's a flat 5% or if it's sort of a random 5%, maybe you could raise 10% more. Who knows? The question is to how you come to that conclusion. Now, this is another way that I see organizations setting their fundraising goal, and this is really egregious to me, and that is the hole in their budget. So let's say you have a projected revenue or income of $100,000, and you have projected expenses of $150,000. So the finance department would say, well, the hole in our budget is $50,000. So we're going to tell the fundraising department that that's what their fundraising goal is. And to me, that's completely ridiculous because that is not based on anything. It's not based on how much you can raise. I mean, maybe you can raise a lot more. Maybe you can't raise anywhere close to that. And so to me, setting a budget, setting a fundraising goal based on the hole in your budget is a crazy, crazy way to set a fundraising budget or goal. Okay, so here is how, we're talking about metrics. So setting metrics in order to raise more money. So I want to show you how to set a major gift goal, but of course you can use this for setting your overall fundraising goal. Now here's a sample gift table of $1 million. And if $1 million is way over what you're doing or way under, you can just take zeros off or add them, and this chart applies. So let's say you want to raise $1 million, and in this first row here, in order to raise $1 million, if we're using the 80-20 rule, which is how fundraising campaigns are structured, you will need one gift at $200,000, or the first gift of approximately 20% of your goal. And so if you look in the second column, over from one gift, you're going to need 4 prospective or potential major gift donors who can and might give you a gift of $200,000. So if you can put 4 names of real people from your database in that column that says these are 4 people who we have reason to believe can and might give us a gift of $200,000, then I would say you can definitely raise a gift of $200,000. So these are 4 people, 4 real people that already give to our organization or we know well, who are supportive of the cause and probably have the ability to make a gift of $200,000. And we're committed to asking each of the 4 for $200,000, then I would say, great. You can say with confidence that you'll be able to raise a gift of $200,000. Now, the other 3 people in that column, the 3 names, don't go away. Of course, they drop to the next row. So hopefully they're giving you a gift of $100,000 or more, maybe not $200,000, but $100,000. So I just want to show you then that the first 12 people in this campaign have given 70% of the goal. And so you would have to have names associated with each of these gifts and each of these prospects in order to say with confidence that you can raise $1 million this year. And people do this more for capital campaigns than they do for annual campaigns, but you can absolutely use it for your annual fund. If you want to raise $100,000 in major gifts, you might say, okay, well, we need a gift of $20,000, 2 gifts of $10,000, 3 gifts of $5,000, et cetera, to get to your $100,000 goal, something like that. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. We'll get to them in just a minute. So I have a metrics worksheet or a metrics dashboard that I use, so you can go ahead and grab it from my website. It's at masteringmajorgifts.com/metrics, and you can have a copy of my metrics dashboard that I use with my clients. Again, here it is at masteringmajorgifts.com/metrics. So here's some more of the things that I look for when I'm looking at evaluating a major gift program. So dollars solicited and dollars raised. So in the first column, if I have a development director who's asked for $1 million from, I don't know, 5 or 10 or 20 people, whatever, it doesn't matter how many donors, but they've asked for $1 million and they've only raised $100,000, which is dollars in, which is really, those are dollars raised. That's what most organizations are measuring. But if you don't know how much they've asked for, then you don't know if they're doing a good job or not. But if you know they've asked for $1 million and only raised $100,000, then they're being too aggressive, or you're being too aggressive. You haven't asked the right questions. You're asking for money before you've cultivated people. You haven't done enough research. You're just out there running around asking for money without putting enough thought into it. On the right-hand column, if you've asked for $1 million, again, from 10 or 15 or 20 people, it doesn't matter, or from 2, doesn't make a difference, and you get the whole $1 million that you've asked for over the course of the year, then I'd say you're being too conservative. You're waiting to ask until you're completely sure that you're going to get the gift. You aren't you probably aren't asking enough people for money, and you're not asking for enough money. So very similarly is number of gifts asked for and number of gifts raised. So if you've asked for 100 gifts from different people, but only 10 people actually gave you gifts, you're being too aggressive. And if you've asked for 100 gifts and you get all 100, then you're not being aggressive enough. So the sweet spot, of course, is somewhere between 70 and 80% for all of these metrics. Like, I actually want you to get a few no's. I want people to turn you down. I don't want people always to give you the amount you ask for, because to me, if you're always getting the amount you ask for from every person you ask from, it means you're not being aggressive enough. You're not putting yourself out there enough. So that will give you some sense of how you're doing as a fundraiser. So also, my metrics worksheet looks at retention and acquisition. Are you retaining your, are you retaining your major gift donors? Are you acquiring new major gift donors? Are you going on meaningful visits? How many times a year are you visiting with people, or a week or a month? And how's the stewardship going? Stewardship is one of the most important parts of the fundraising process, and yet often we neglect it because it's after the gift. It's the thank you and the follow-up and letting people know how their gift was used. But of course, that's a metric or an indicator of future fundraising, of retention. So I want to know that too. So one of the things that it's really important to do, of course, with major gift fundraising is improve your routine. And that just means staying on track. Listen, one call with a donor a day equals 225 calls per year. And so one of the things that I want you to keep in mind as you're thinking about raising major gifts and the importance of metrics is that major gift fundraising is probably the only kind of fundraising that is not deadline driven. Grant writing, grants have deadlines, and events have deadlines. Events come up, and also even direct mail, whether it's online or traditional, you're probably trying to get it out before the holidays, whatever deadline you have. But with major gift fundraising, no donor is sitting on the other end of the phone waiting for you to call. It is entirely up to you. And so it's really important to keep track of those metrics and stay on track in order to raise major gifts. So think about, what are you doing every day to move the needle? So small amounts of time add up, right? I just showed you one phone call per workday is about 225 calls per year. That's a significant number of donor calls. The question is, are you calling a donor every single day? And I don't even mean that you have to get in touch with the person. Leaving a message is fine. 2 meetings a month is 24 meetings a year. Are you doing more than that? Are you doing less? And 3 hours a week committed to raising major gifts is 150 hours per year on raising major gifts. So just thinking about the metrics and the time of it. So that's secret number 3, metrics matter. You will raise more money when you're using the right metrics. So that was secret number 3. All right, so this is what we've covered today. Secret number 1 is that you can raise major gifts without any new donors. They're all hiding in your database. Secret number 2 is if you get a meeting, you'll get a gift. And secret number 3 is metrics matter. You're going to raise more money by using the right metrics. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes or so for questions. So if you have any, feel free to type them in. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. And if you want weekly fundraising tips, they're on my website, and I hope you'll come over and get them from me.
Thank you so much, Amy. That was super insightful, and I especially appreciated secret number 3 myself personally. It is just so much. It's so important to be disciplined when it comes to fundraising, and I think you've kind of helped. You've helped break that down for us. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Susan's asking, do email contacts count as calls?
Yeah, so I mean, you can track your email contacts. If you're engaged with a donor and setting up a meeting, that's fine with me. You can have a column for how many donors you've emailed, sure.
And then someone's asking, do you encourage major donors to give annually, monthly, auto pay, both? Is one more successful than the other? All?
Yeah, right? I mean, all. That would be great, wouldn't it? So listen, with a major donor, and a major donor is somebody that I'm classifying as somebody that you've sat down with and discussed the gift. And so you may get lots of gifts in the size category of major, $1,000 or more, $10,000 or more, just over the through the mail or online. And to me, that donor is either just giving in the way that they sort of get asked from your organization, and potentially, to me, if you sat down with them, you could raise a lot more. And so then it is up to you to have a conversation with that donor as to how they would like to make their payments, if they're interested in a monthly payment plan, if they'd like to pay all at once, if they're going to be using a check or a credit card or stock. And yes, generally the ask is annually. In terms of sitting down with a person and asking for a major gift, that's not the same for mail or online. But if you're sitting down with someone, generally it's annually. But if there's a special need or a special project or something comes up, then I would say that if there's a good reason, you can go back to your donor more than once a year.
All right. We have a couple of people asking about how do you think is the best way to screen your list for the major donors or for wealth?
Yeah. So okay. So the cheap way is to so two things. One is if you're looking for prospective donors, which is what I was about to say, to screen your list for wealth, meaning figuring out what assets they have and what organizations they've given to and all sorts of other information, then you have to go through a company that does that, and there's hundreds of them out there. And so you have to pay a company to actually screen for wealth. But to identify the potential major gift donors in your organization without doing wealth screening, I would say you start by running your list of your biggest and your most loyal donors, so your largest donors, and then another list of your most loyal donors, and you do the rating system that I was talking about. So rating them on a scale of 1 to 5. Who's the most active and involved and engaged donors? What score would you give them on a score of 1 to 5? And then, of course, in terms of capacity, based on what you know about them, would you give them a score of 1 to 5? And that is how I would identify the top prospects to focus on first at your organization.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I think we got most of the questions answered, but if you have any more, I'm sure Amy would be happy to answer briefly at some point.
Yep, I'd be happy to hear from people. Sorry. Yeah, I'm happy to have emails. You can send me follow-up questions. It's no problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Amy. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. One of the things that help us to keep this free is by you giving us information after you log out. So please do fill out that survey that you'll be getting as you close out today. And to all of you, thanks so much. I really appreciate you being with us. Have a great day.